Welcome to the Obesity Matters Wellness Workshop, where we embark on an epic journey together towards better health and wellness. Whether this is your first time or you've been with us since we started a month ago, we are grateful you are here. My name is Rachel. I'm the Vice Chair of Obesity Matters, and I am your host for this year-long program. Today, we are bringing you the second education session of this season. The topic is Fueling My Health, the role of protein, supplements, and muscle in weight management and overall wellness. Well, I'm really excited to share with you who our experts are for today. Welcome Erik Bustillo and Will Brink. How about we get started by you both sharing a little bit about your background and why your view on this topic is really important. Erik, how about we start with you?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing really well. Greetings from sunny South Florida for me. My name is Erik Bustillo, and I've been in the field of nutrition, health, wellness, longevity, performance for well over a decade now. I've kind of stopped counting, and I've had the opportunity to work with thousands of people throughout the years, from reading blood work and working on sustainable changes, using my knowledge in nutrition, assist people through medical nutrition therapy, so disease management, then also just coaching people to help them make long-term changes, whether it was something like improving blood pressure, just weight loss, or even learning about exercise and those things. And I've been fortunate enough to work with professional athletes and individuals that have never worked out a day in their life. So it's been a fun ride, and I'm passionate about making an impact. So I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Well, so this is my second time here, so hopefully some people remember me from last time. My name is Will Brink. Used to be a well-known writer for most of the bodybuilding, health, fitness publications pre-internet. If anybody's old enough out there, remember when there was no internet. Worked with various professional athletes, SWAT teams, Olympic track athletes, been published in a number of peer-reviewed journals, went to Harvard pre-med. Thought I was going to be a doctor at one time, but did not go on to do that. Done a lot of consulting work for various major dairy companies and supplement companies and that type of thing, and run a fairly popular website called brinkzone.com.
You're also a very well respected and known individual in our industry.
Thank you.
Thank you for adding that, Erik. I
appreciate that.
I'm really excited to hear your response to all of these questions that I'm about to ask. And I think we could start it with what could perhaps be the most depressing, I want to say, question of all of them. Let's start in this place and build up from there. How about that? My first question, I'll direct to you, Will. Many of us believe that weight loss is driven by exercise. And can you give us your expert view on that?
If someone had asked me 10 years ago or something, how important is exercise to weight loss, I would have said it's essential. You've got to do it. But honestly, the data that we have, which is fairly extensive, is not very impressive as far as the contribution of exercise to weight loss. The amount of actual calories that you use during exercise, the effects of exercise on diet, and so forth has unfortunately does not find exercise has a major contribution. The reality of exercise, however, of course, is just that the benefits of exercise are so extensive as far as mood and blood pressure and bone density and all that, and glucose management. It just goes on, and that you still have to do it. It's still a component for sure, of course, to healthy. Now there's the key to healthy weight loss and fat loss and body composition, that you still have to do it. But I mean, it's a little bit of a downer just because exercise a lot, maybe expect a bigger response that they don't always get. So maybe this confirms some real world experiences. Yes, so it has been found that the data is fairly extensive and fairly conclusive that proportional benefit of exercise in weight loss is not that great. So I know, again, that for some that may actually confirm their real world experience. For some, they may sort of throw up their hands. My bottom line, take on it is you still have to do it anyway, especially like say when your focus is on healthy weight loss, which is obviously what it should be on, versus just weight loss at any cost or any focus. When your focus is on healthy weight loss, which is obviously what it should be on, versus just weight loss at any cost or any focus.
I agree with Will. I think that exercise is oftentimes seen as the only way to lose weight. But I think we have to look at things in a bigger picture. Everything isn't solely about weight. It's about feeling good at the end of the day, and exercise really helps with that. Not to mention that we don't do a great job at measuring things like movement and even how much we're consuming. I'm a registered dietitian. There was even a study once on dietitians that looked at assessment of how much they thought they were eating. Basically, long story short of this study was that the nutrition experts in this particular study thought that they were eating less than what they actually were. And they thought that they were burning more calories via exercise than what they actually were. So this causes this thought process of I'm not eating that much, but in reality they were eating more than they thought. And I'm burning so many calories in my exercise when in reality they weren't burning that many. But the benefits, if there was a medication that had the side effects, if you will, that exercise has, it would be the greatest medication ever invented, because exercise is just that important for us.
So actually that leads me into my next question for you, Erik. When it comes to fad diets, we feel like we've been overpromised this idea of quick weight loss. And for many of us, we've tried all of them and they've also all failed. Can you share with us your expert view on dieting?
Unfortunately, the weight loss industry has done a good job at pushing people to view nutrition solely for the purpose of weight loss. And nutrition is so much more than just weight loss. Now, don't get me wrong. We know that if an individual does decrease their body fat percentage, if they're carrying excess body fat, certain biomarkers are going to improve. And we've seen that time and time again. But to drive into people's heads that going on this quick solution, in air quotes, if you will, to get you to lose weight, it's driven people to not be happy with their food choices, to not be happy with themselves. I've worked with people who have quite literally been on a diet from the age of 14, and they're when I started working with them, they were 56, and they were just on and off, and had an unhealthy relationship with food and nutrition. My short answer to people looking for this fast solution is to stop. Life doesn't end tomorrow, hopefully not, right? So we have to think about the long process and the long game. So in reality, if we can find a sustainable approach to our nutrition, that's going to be the best way. And I'm Cuban Colombian. You know, when people say, hey, just cut out carbs and that sort of thing, I love my rice and beans. It's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Will, what's your view on what Erik just shared?
The way I try to explain it to people so they can utilize the information, because there's a lot of confusing information, is we know statistically speaking that getting the weight off is actually not the difficult part. Keeping the weight off is the difficult part, hence why people go up and down and all that. A fad diet, any fad diet, by its definition, is temporary. You're more or less going to follow it. This is the logic people use. I'm going to follow it, whatever it may be, till I get the weight off, then I'm going to go back to X. And that's going to fail. Basically, here's how you get past that. You look at this fad diet, whatever it is, and you ask yourself, can I eat this way for the rest of my life? If the answer is no, it's not the diet for you. You don't even have to have science background. You don't have to be a registered dietitian to do that on your own, because whatever's going to work for you permanently is going to be a long-term permanent change in your nutritional practices. And therefore, you, even without any science background, can eliminate 90% of what gets put in front of you. Carnivore, keto, whatever. Can I eat this way for the rest of my life? Because if you do a thing, whether it's a liquid diet or whatever, and then your plan is to go back to however you ate before, you know the answer, what's going to happen. You've all, not all, but most people have experienced what I'm talking about. This, I think, allows people to, without any nutritional background or medical background, get by a lot of stuff and make decisions, for themselves. Like I say, we know that, more or less, that keeping that weight off, the failure rates, 90% plus, which is fairly depressing, but I also know and have worked. But the people that make those permanent changes and keep the weight off are those who have made permanent long-term changes to their nutrition patterns and their eating behaviors, which probably indicates that they're not going to be on a keto diet forever or a carnivore diet forever. And that, like I say, I think to add what Erik said, that's the practical take home of to how to approach that for yourself and move forward.
So kind of like zooming out, I guess, from very specific diets, if we kind of look at sort of like an eating mantra, I suppose, something that we've been told before, cutting out carbs and eating more protein is a way to lose weight. Erik, can you tell us about your thoughts on that, and what does actual balanced nutrition look like instead?
Yeah, that's a good question. To lose weight, is that statement that you just put out there about cutting carbs and eating more protein, is it wrong? Not really. Because it can result in weight loss if we're just being black and white about the matter. I think we all also know and understand that nutrition and life don't really exist in a vacuum or a tunnel, right? So when we say to somebody to cut out carbs, typically people think that when we say cut out or cut back on carbs, it's bread, rice, potato, pasta, but we forget about beans and just plant foods, right? You're looking at like fruits and vegetables that also count as carbohydrates. And oftentimes what ends up happening is if someone does go on this low carb, higher protein approach, there's a couple of things that happen that are positive. The cutting back on carbs helps them decrease their perhaps excess intake of ultra-processed food. Ultra-processed food historically has been very high in sugar, fat, sodium. It tastes really good. It's not very nutrient dense. So it's easier for us to overconsume those foods. Overconsumption, when it comes to everything we're talking about here for long-term health, overconsumption is the root of all evil. So too much of anything is not going to be good, be it carbs, be it protein. Funny enough, we don't know how much is too much protein in healthy individuals. Keeping that in mind is important because when you tell someone cut back on your carbs, they almost naturally will begin to gravitate towards more whole foods and decrease their overall caloric intake. Calories in, calories out, when it comes to weight loss, is the formula, right? Now, how we get there, it really depends. It could be cutting back on carbs or cutting back on fats or cutting back on protein, which I don't recommend. It's always gonna be that, calories in versus calories out. Hormones play a role there, don't get me wrong. The types of foods that we eat play a role there as well. Stress plays a role there. Sleep, there's so many things that play a role, but at the end of the day, it's still those thermodynamics of calories coming in versus the calories that we're expending. Kind of like a financial budget, if you will. Money coming in versus money going out. How do you save more? How do you spend more? And then, so that's one thing. The calories come down if we tell someone cut back on your carbs. If we tell someone eat more protein, as far as being vague, that's quite vague, but it's not bad advice. I do find in my practice that most people, in fact, out of the thousands of people that I've worked with, maybe 2% of those individuals were already consuming what I consider to be an adequate amount of protein. Getting more protein is not a bad piece of advice. In fact, it might help with satiety. It might help you stay feeling full for longer, support muscle mass. But we also have to consider just telling someone cut back on carbs and eat more protein, it's not beneficial. We all have to focus on making smaller, if you will, call them 1% changes, things that are actionable. Maybe for some people, it's making a protein shake first thing in the morning because it's easy for them and they enjoy it. And right there, they're getting 20, 30, or 40 grams of protein that they weren't getting before. Maybe it's having people focus on more color on your plate as often as possible. Seek color, not Skittles, but things like vegetables and fruits. So looking for that as often as you can. These are actionable items. Maybe if you're going to get a protein type of food, look for a protein portion the size of your whole hand, not just your palm, but maybe your whole hand. Because I do find, again, that most people are under consuming protein. So it's not like that advice of cutting back on carbs and having more protein is completely wrong. I just don't like the complete elimination of any sort of nutrient, especially macronutrients, when we know that things like carbohydrates can help fuel performance and mood. Going back to everything, and I'll finish off with this, overconsumption is truly where the problem lies.
That's a good one. And you threw out a lot of factors there that can be different, look different in different situations. Hi, Rachel, did you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Just asking about, there seems to be a lot of things popping up on my Instagram feed about hormonal supplements and hormone therapy that'll, put everything right in the world. Happy hormones or whatever it's called. What about hormonal supplements? I know zero about that subject, but you mentioned it just now as well.
There's two different topics here. So there is HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. And that's something you would do with a medical doctor. You'd get blood tests. and there can be lots of value to it. I'm definitely a proponent of it. If you need, as we get older, anybody past the sort of metabolic or cutoff is about 40. It varies, but more or less most people, 40 is a pretty good cutoff where we start to see some fairly noticeable hormonal changes. I think we can all more or less remember whoever of us are past 40. Now, again, it's a little earlier or a little later, but I think it's a fairly good cutoff. If your hormones are not optimized, you're really just making your life hard. If your thyroid is subpar, you're making your life harder than it needs to be. If you're, most women, again, when at certain age are going to go into perimenopause and then menopausally. One of the major reasons that you feel good and you have muscle mass and energy and libido and all that when you're younger is due to your hormones. And again, I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody. So I personally recommend anybody at least over 40 get a hormone profile done with their doctor and take it from there. Again, I'm a more progressive, active in terms of like controlling my hormone person. Some doctors are going to look at you and say, well, that's a normal part of aging. Now, I'm going to frame my response to that would not be pleasant. You can definitely take that normal aging thing and do with it. Something, sun don't shine, yada, yada, yada. It's not going to be nice. Me personally, I'm going to have the best hormones I can to age as gracefully or non-gracefully as I can and have a good metabolism and all that. Now, to your other question, hormone supplements, most of those are a straight up scam. There aren't really there's supplements that more or less what they're going to say support hormones or, optimize hormones and something to that rule. But real hormones are not legal over the counter in most countries, including the US. Most of your hormones, the production of your hormones require enzymes. Those enzymes depend on magnesium. But again, if you're taking a multivitamin and you're supporting all of that, you're probably covered. But again, this is where things are difficult. A zinc deficiency will cause testosterone deficiency in people and men. Something you want to address and make sure that you're, a bad diet and lack of exercise will tank your hormones. Sort of forced to make some assumptions that you sort of got that other stuff all squared away. And as our hormones do take a nosedive after 40, my personal recommendations, I think everybody should have a hormone profile done once a year after 40 and then make your decisions from there.
I saw somebody had asked about protein and kidney. In healthy individuals, there's no concern for consuming protein and kidney health for the person that asked that.
So with that, as everyone is departing, I just wanted to share that, again, thank you so much, Will and Erik. And also that this is only the second month of a year-long program. Every single month, I will be hosting an education session like today. And then in a couple of weeks, Sandra will be hosting the second support session. And that's actually on November 20th. On December 4th is our next education session. And that's on the festive season survival guide. Practical strategies for managing holiday stress and well-being with Dr. Dana Lee Bagley. So please keep an eye out for your next Obesity Matters email with all these details and more. Thank you for joining us today. Remember that our journey towards better health and wellness is not a solitary one. We are here to support and uplift one another. See you next time.